interesting and very unusual, and I hope very productive year. So I also want to mention to you as we start our meeting this afternoon, which will be right on time, because I want to be very respectful of your time, that we are going to record this meeting so that we are able to share the meeting with our colleagues who couldn't join us today and who are otherwise engaged. So if you will, if you do not want to have any participation in the recording, please remain muted and turn off your camera so that we can record it for our colleagues and feel good about it at the same time and be respectful to everyone. So let me go ahead and get started, and let's go. Let's have a great time. And because I was playing the Welcome Back Cotter, I got to get going. All right. Let me share. Okay. I hope everybody can see that. Can you see that? Just nod or use an emoji. Okay. I want to also, of course, welcome all of you back, and I appreciate that you're here today as we do kick off the fall semester. I think you're going to find this meeting to be really helpful, and that was our intent when we set it up. Let's actually go over a few statistics that you may not have heard yet for the college in case you've been away or you've been otherwise involved. First, we have about 30% of our classes that are going to be on campus this fall, if you weren't aware. And that was because we wanted to bring back classes where there is a fairly important hands-on component or where the faculty indicated that virtual instruction was not as effective as face-to-face. So we are, of course, as Dr. Dukes mentioned this morning, we're taking a very cautious approach to the return to campus, and we will, of course, be constantly monitoring the status of the virus, which Dr. Dukes reviewed in this morning's meeting. If you weren't there, I just think it'd be a good idea, if you were unable to stream it or be there, to take a quick look. One of the things, of course, I feel really good about is that we live in a county with a very high vaccination rate. And I think that provides us with a solid foundation to return to campus as safely as possible. So really quick, let's go over what we're going to be doing. First, I'd like to welcome our new faculty to the campus. We may have a staff member, but I don't think so when I looked at it last time. It's remarkable to think that this may be their first experience on campus this fall, to be seeing any of us and all of us. So that is a pretty unusual and remarkable development. We'll also discuss our return to campus, some of which we learned a little bit, so I'll be brief on the return to campus update, but it's some other things that might be helpful for you to have some awareness of as we evolve through this COVID impacted environment, and we must constantly evolve to meet our circumstances. And as Dr. Dukes mentioned, we got to be flexible. We're also going to be joined today by Dr. Kevin Long, who's going to give us his perspective on the impact the pandemic is having on the regional economy. The deans and the chairs were able to talk with Dr. Long previously and really thought he had a lot to offer and that everybody would benefit from hearing from him. So he's going to be the majority of our conversation today about insights where the future career opportunities and educational needs in the county will emerge. So let's take a quick look at this slide and think about what all these individuals have in common. I did not include Cotter because he had an ode to Cotter at the beginning, but I just mentioned that it was really fascinating to me when I was preparing for today that Aretha Franklin acted only once, and she's in the upper left-hand corner of this screen. It was on television in 1972 on the Room 222 program, which of course is about teachers in a high school. And she chose to be on a program that focused on education and helping future generations and engaging with young people. The other examples I have on here are teachers such as Annie Sullivan, Jaime Escalante, and George McKenna, among others, who made a significant difference in the lives of their students and communities. And I was hoping that these powerful images will remind you of the value of education to change lives and the importance of your work at Montgomery College. And I want to thank you again, in addition to Dr. Dukes and Dr. Rye, for choosing to be at Montgomery College at this unprecedented time and making it possible for all of us to continue to change lives for the better. So let's talk a little bit about what's really fascinating and important closer to home. So I also want to recognize the many successes of our faculty, our chairs, deans in demonstrating the quality and benefits of Montgomery College. One exceptional achievement that I felt I really needed to mention to you during this previous academic year was our National Association of Schools of Art and Design accreditation. Now, many individuals were involved. That means Dr. Frank Trezza, Pendai Johnson, Eric Swanson, Roberto Gomez, and the faculty in the visual, media, and performing arts. They all worked tirelessly to bring this recognition to our college. This is a remarkable achievement in the same vein as when we got American Bar Association accreditation the previous year. So let's all unmute for a moment, if we can, to do a round of applause or use an emoji to let them know how important what they did. Now remute yourself. Further, English and reading, which was mentioned in Dr. Rye's meeting, but Lawrence mentioned again, they met the challenge of disruptive placement by setting up a new remote placement approach that served over 2,000 students effectively during the pandemic. We also were very fortunate to make strides in improving our graduation and transfer rates and our DFW rates. For example, Beauchamp students took less time to graduate, down to 4.36 years from the college average, which is actually 4.95. And business and international business students took 4.1 years to graduate. And further, and I believe Dr. Rye mentioned this as well, early childhood education faculty, led by Sonia Pernita Hernandez and her colleagues, helped our students to achieve a 57% increase in completion for AY21 under the leadership of Dr. Eric Benjamin. And so these are remarkable in addition to the fact that DFW rates just continue to decline. For example, criminal justice went down by 37%, accounting by 9%, economics by 4.2%. And I'll point your attention, the ABEESS annual report is finished through the good work of our deans and the leadership of Ed Riggs. And I want to thank all of them for their participation in creating another wonderful annual report, which will be coming out this week for all of us to review for more information on the statistics I just mentioned to you now. I also want to thank you because I know that I am continually impressed by your resilience, your ability to inspire our students to be successful, your attention to each student's value in your classrooms, setting high expectations, showing flexibility and concern. I also want you to remember as we start the fall that you need to, of course, continue to take time for yourself in these uncertain times where we're constantly adjusting to our new and revised circumstances. And while everything else is important, I think the one thing that really distinguishes our college is that we have the best teachers ever. So I want to make sure you remember that as we start fall. And who are the best teachers ever, you may ask? Well, they will be joined by some new faculty this fall who recently joined our college. Their names are here and they are welcoming to our new faculty, full and part-time, on the slide. We did, by the way, have all of their information included in the annual report and where you can read their bios and become familiar with them and reach out to them, which I hope you will. Just a few interesting statistics. We have 3 new psychology faculty, 1 new anthropology faculty member, 10 new English and reading faculty members, both full and part-time, and 3 new accounting faculty and 1 new business faculty. I look forward to welcoming all of you to the college. I hope to see you in person, and I wish each of you a very successful fall semester. And I know everyone here at the meeting today joins me in welcoming you to the college and to this exciting opportunity. Now, it's important, before we hear from Dr. Long, for me to just briefly update you on the return to campus. First, of course, the mask mandate remains in effect. Also, hand sanitizer and other personal protective equipment will be available throughout buildings where you will be potentially in the building if you chose to teach in person some portion or during the fall semester. Further, so physical distancing isn't currently a requirement, and it is not a requirement by the Centers for Disease Control. But that doesn't mean that you may not want to physical distance as a form of an additional precaution as we deal with the issue that is the Delta variant. Further, as I mentioned this morning, there are no water fountains. However, if you have your own personal water bottle, there are water filling stations that are available. And there's a lot of interest in the college vaccine mandate. And I mentioned changing environment. Well, today, of course, you may have seen the news, the Pfizer vaccine received official FDA approval. And the college is looking very closely at under what circumstances and how quickly they would or would not implement a vaccine mandate. I think they're leaning toward more likely for employees and for students. And so I think that will be changing constantly and very quickly in the near future. Okay, I think it's also important for you to know that we've been working over the summer to ensure that the vending machines are restocked and dining services are currently not yet available. But I will provide you updates on the dining services once dining food options are finalized. These could be anything from, ready to eat meals, not the Army or Navy type, but pre-prepared that are safe for you to purchase and or of course food trucks. Those are all under consideration. The MBA Cafe unfortunately lost their cafe manager. And of course, we haven't had any students physically on campus, but they've been working really hard, Steve Lang, John Colleton, to hire a cafe manager. And that means that we may see later some drip coffee and possibly some specialty drinks later in the semester once students and the cafe manager return and are fully trained to operate the cafe. Okay. There'd been some interest in enrollment, and I know Dr. Rye mentioned that. This interest I heard was mostly that there were concerns about how the enrollment dips might have the potential to impact employment at college. So I looked into this and I got John Hammond's slide on enrollment, and you'll see there is going to be a dip. There likely will be some financial implications, but there being projections are effective. The projections are good, and our dips have not been, as Dr. Dukes mentioned, in double digits. So they're manageable. And I think that they're steady in terms of managing these finances. They're watching them very closely. They're very good at it. And I don't think anything unexpected will occur. The deans and all of our staff are working very closely to ensure all of our employees are gainfully employed and are with the college and comfortably going along. I thought the other thing that John Hammond put together was a really interesting slide here about the fall courses and what modalities, and this is changing daily. This is as of Friday. And so you'll see that the remote modality is at about 55%, 55.5, maybe 56% of the choice in terms of students enrollment. And that the full term is the part of term that's most popular right now. Face-to-face, however, is closing in. And you can see it's about 30.2%, which is higher than the first time I looked at these data about a week ago, a week or 2.5 ago. So that just gives you a little bit of background on what's going on with the college and what is going on with how students' enrollment patterns are going. And so that actually is the main thing I wanted to share with you this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, before we have the main event. And we're right on time, so I feel good about that. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce Dr. Long, who is our Deputy Chief of Staff here for Planning and Policy at the college. Just so you know a little bit about Dr. Long, he leads the college's strategic planning process. He manages the development and review of our college policies and procedures, and he does it quite well, I might add. And he conducts environmental scans and labor market analyses for a variety of our internal and external stakeholders. And that's what he'll focus on today with his remarks. He has a PhD and a master's degree in public administration and policy from Virginia Tech and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and sociology from Roanoke College. Now that was new. I did not know that he had a criminal justice and sociology degree. So really, if you think about it, he's one of us. He also serves as an adjunct faculty member in the Public and International Affairs Department at George Mason University, and he is presenting to us today on the impact of the pandemic on the regional economy and the future of work in our area. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Long, and I'll also ask him if he needs to share.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, and yes, I do. I am in the office, but I'm going to take my mask off for this presentation. just because it's hard to kind of talk through it. But thank you for the invitation. Let me go ahead and get this going here. And oops, sorry about that. And just so you know, for those of you who actually saw this a couple of weeks ago, the data has actually changed. It has been updated, so there's some new figures in here. Unfortunately, every time I look at the numbers, they seem to go down, which does not bode well, but that's not all bad news as we look through the economy. Now, keep in mind, some of the numbers I'm going to be presenting to you are, again, this is just what we know now. These are the best guess projections based on the most recent data and looking at the trends. So it really is just kind of, it's educated guesswork. So hopefully these numbers will go back up. Unfortunately, every time I look at the data, they update it. Our projections are trending downward. So that tells you the length, the breadth and depth of the impact that COVID had on our economy. But I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you today, but I want you to walk away with a couple of really big numbers that you will remember. First of all is that in your area for the ABEES units, for all those occupations that your programs serve as feeders to, about 45,000 new jobs were created 2015 to 2019. So we were on a really good trend. Then COVID hit and lost 44,445 jobs in this area. That is a tremendous hit. That wiped out the previous 4 years of growth, wiped it completely out. In the next couple of years, up to 2025, only anticipating to recover 19,000 of those jobs. So it is going to be a long, slow recovery. Between now and 2030, anticipated to recover 43,000 new jobs. So we're going to be about 1,000 off of where we were before the pandemic hit. So keep that in mind. This is going to be a very long, extended, bumpy, cyclical recovery. But there is good news. Don't feel too upset about this, because in the next 9 years, there are going to be 913,000 job openings just for occupations and careers in this area, for ABEES. So these are new and replacement jobs. So just because new jobs aren't growing doesn't mean that employers don't need to hire replacement workers. So there's a huge demand out there, almost 1 million new job openings in the next 10 years. So keep that in mind as you're looking at some of these figures. So what did the COVID do to Montgomery County? Well, as you can see there, chugging along pre-COVID, we were growing about 3% rate of growth. COVID hit, boom, we lost 6% of our jobs in a very short amount of time. And in rerunning the numbers and the new projections, the county is not expected to recover all of the jobs lost before 2030 at this point in time. This is bad news. The last time I ran this, we were expected to recover them by 2027. The projections have changed based on what we see going on in the most recent federal jobs report. So it's going to be a long, slow recovery. We're going to add jobs to the economy, but not at a rate and pace that we were before. In terms of the region, it was a much deeper hit. Also within the region, and I'm talking a 50-mile radius from Montgomery College. That area, we're not expected to recover those jobs by 2030 as well. So we got hit hard, and it's going to be a long time for us to recover. This is unlike any recession that I've seen in the past. This is not like what happened in 2008, 2009. That only took us a couple of years to recover. This one is looking like it's going to be about a decade out before those jobs come back, unless something changes drastically over these next couple of years. So within your area, you lost about about 4,600 jobs just in your disciplines. You're chugging along great, about a 2% growth. COVID hit, lost 3% of your jobs. But looking ahead, it looks like all of these jobs that we lost are going to be recovered by 2031. So 10 years right now to recover all of these jobs. So it's going to be a long, slow slog through this. In terms of the region itself, again, you lost 44,000 jobs just in the 50-mile radius. That's a huge one-year loss. That's 4% of the jobs that were gone. Now, the region is expected to recover a little bit quicker. It's looking right now with the most recent projections that this region will recover all of the jobs lost by 2029. So that's some good news. There's a little bit of a silver lining to some of this. But not all jobs were hit equally. So this is for the county and this for your occupational clusters. Here are the jobs that were hit the hardest during the pandemic, the ones who had the largest number of job losses. And you can see there, it's spread across a lot of these disciplines, everywhere from secretaries to teachers to childcare workers to construction managers to bookkeeping and accountants. So everyone, all of these are the top 15 that lost jobs during the pandemic. In the county, was that regional or county? Yeah, in regional 50-mile radius, you can see some similarities here, some huge losses. Again, secretaries, administrative assistants, those childcare workers got hit, hotel, motel, resort, desk clerks got hit. So a lot of these jobs, particularly those ones that require public facing, public interaction, when things kind of locked down and we moved to remote, not every job in the private sector moved remote. We were very fortunate here at the college that we were able to shift our operations for the most part remote, but not everyone was able to do that. So that explained some of these losses during the pandemic. Now, there were some very resilient jobs during the pandemic. Anything to do with project management saw tremendous growth during the pandemic. They were still hiring, still a very valuable credential. So that project management piece is absolutely critical. Every time I run the data now, this one jumps up to the top of almost every list that I look at. So those project management skills are in huge demand. You can see there were some other pretty resilient occupations. Police officers were fairly resilient during this time. Some actually education and guidance, career counselors was actually resilient. Management analysts, that would be like my job. That's like a catch-all bucket for something like that I do. So again, you can see it kind of spread across some of your disciplines. Some are very resilient, some not so resilient. And looking at the region itself, again, you see that project management specialists right at the top of the list again, did not lose any jobs in the region during the pandemic. So that's something to keep in mind. Database administrators and architects, that ties into our computer applications piece. There are psychiatric technicians, Eric, looking at some of your stuff, psychologists to psychiatric aides. Surprisingly, some of these were very resilient during the pandemic. You see substance abuse and mental health counselors. So I guess as people locked down, stress increased, people sought more services. Maybe people took advantage of their employee mental health services. But you can see there was a very resilient occupational growth during the actual recession. Now, in looking ahead, there are some jobs that are right now projected to continue to lose jobs. Not adding any new jobs. Any new employment in these fields will be replacement jobs, replacing people who retire or replacing people who quit. So again, you see secretaries at the top of the list again. Preschool teachers, also at the top of the list. Tax preparers, so cost estimators, lodging managers. So it tells us that our hospitality, our food service, they're not going to rebound as fast as we anticipated that they were. And when they come out the other side, they're going to look a little bit different in terms of who's employed and what jobs are there. You see the same pattern play out in the county or in the region. So between now and 2030, you can see these are the occupational categories that are going to continue to see sustained job losses year to year to year to year, and cumulative over this next 9-year period. You have negative new growth. So again, some good news mixed with some bad news in here. Again, we had to unpack a lot of this to kind of figure out exactly what industries are going to be hit hardest, but that's another layer of filtering and data analysis that I can get into. In terms of the most resilient post-pandemic jobs for your occupational clusters, teachers, and teachers. It's going to grow. So that's something to keep in mind. Childcare workers, looking at good, resilient, positive growth. Paralegals, excellent, resilient growth going into the next couple of years. Police officers, substance abuse counselors. So we've got people from occupation, I think they hit most of your areas are going to see some pretty good sustained growth in addition to some sustained job losses. But keep in mind, a good thing to keep in mind is that openings number. That's the big number, almost 1 million new openings overall in the economy, or actually within your region. So again, looking at regionally, the most resilient post-pandemic occupations. Again, most of these are clustered around business. Your management analysts, your general operations managers, accountants, and auditors, but you still see elementary school teachers in there, teaching assistants, substance abuse counselors, police officers again, construction managers, paralegals makes the list yet again. So some good anticipated growth in this. So these are new jobs these are the occupations within your discipline areas that are the most post-pandemic resilient. Most ones we're expected to see the most growth in. So, but again, I told you about that almost 1 million job openings. Here are the top job openings in the next 9 years. Again, project management specialists at the top, leading the list, could be 83,000 job openings in the next 9 years. Just general office clerks, there's 69,000. Management analysts, another 60,000. Childcare workers, another 38,000 job openings in the next 9 years. So that's tremendous demand. It may not be growth, but it is still demand. So, employers and people in the community are still going to need skilled, trained workers in these areas. Even if there is no new job growth, there will be demand for replacement and to sustain current levels. And again, you see this play out at the county level again. Interesting enough, childcare workers has the most openings of your discipline area within Montgomery County. There's about 9,000 anticipated job openings in the next 9 years. So that program is poised to meet some serious demand. Same thing with elementary school teachers, accountants, and auditors. Some of our computer occupations all over, although those are the ones that fall into our computer applications program. So again, going to be some demand here. And again, may not be new growth. We know secretaries and administrative assistants aren't going to have new jobs, but we're going to have to replace a lot of these workers. We're experiencing it right now in the president's office. We have to replace a couple of workers, a couple of those and a couple of executive assistants in our office now. So again, not growth, but still demand being present. So in terms of what are we looking at recently in terms of job postings since the beginning of this calendar year? Well, within a 50-mile radius of the college, there have been about 355,000 unique job postings just within your disciplinary areas. There have been about 1.7 million total job postings, but the deduplicated count is 355,000. In the county, there's been 32,000. So again, people are posting for these jobs. The trick is are they finding qualified employees to offset any negative job loss or to promote the job growth? So we are seeing that job postings are there. We're still down. We're up over the same time last year, which is good news, but we're still down looking 2 or 3 years back over the same time period. So the job posting, we're starting to slowly wake up again. Employers are starting to hire again, but with the Delta variant, everything else, it's kind of throwing a wrench into everyone's planning. And so right now we're, just like getting data during COVID was a challenge, this post-pandemic data is also challenging because we're not quite out of the woods yet. And so things change very rapidly. So it may be a couple of years before the data itself recovers into something that's actually more usable. And looking at advertised salary, salary is still pretty good for your disciplinary areas. It's a little bit higher outside of the county. Median advertised salary is $57,000. Within county, it's 52,000. That's going to vary depending on what we look at, but in aggregate, fairly good rates of pay. In terms of experience in education, regionally, most jobs are requiring a bachelor's degree within your specific areas. So about 47% are requiring a bachelor's degree. Again, in terms of experience, it looks like about 2 to 3 years, but some don't list experience. So that kind of throws things off a little bit. But you can compare this to in the county, same thing. We're seeing the same thing play out in the county. About 47% of the job postings are requiring a bachelor's degree as a minimum. Same thing with the years of experience. So it doesn't mean that these jobs that you can't get it with you don't have a bachelor's degree. That just means that's what they're looking for. But there are plenty of jobs, below that are sub-baccalaureate level, high school or GED or associate's degree, that are still quite viable moving forward. And some just haven't listed anything. We have to go through and read every job posting, one by one to kind of tease that out. But sometimes they just don't put it in there. So in terms of what are the most posted what occupations have been posted the most since the beginning of January for your area? And you see there, some of our more miscellaneous computer occupations, more along the lines of graphic design, web design, things like that. Management analysts, web designers, digital interface designers are on there. Any of the personal service managers, those are starting to make a comeback. Accountants and auditors, always a perennial list maker in terms of top jobs. Childcare workers, starting to work its way back into the top posted jobs within the 50-mile radius. But you see that it's mostly business oriented, business heavy right now. So you can kind of see that. It doesn't mean that those jobs aren't out there. It's just these are the top 10. And same thing for the county. You can see there are miscellaneous computer occupations, accountants and auditors, childcare workers again, web developers again, sales managers again. So as businesses start to reopen and start to shift their operations and shift their service model, you're going to see hiring follow that going on. And we're seeing that play out now. So hopefully these trends will continue. Will be more jobs posted. And the next time they update the data at the federal level, we'll get a little bit of a better sense of projection-wise where we're going to be. In terms of skills, here are the most common skills within your disciplinary cluster. And these are, they call these the soft skills. These are the power skills. So you see communications, planning, presentations, research, problem solving. So if you're teaching, if your program or your courses are teaching these skills, this is a good thing because they are highly in demand. Some of these things will never go out of style. Communications is always in demand. I've never not seen communications make this list. Research, planning, my favorite, planning is on here now, is starting to crack the top 10. And this is within a 50-mile radius. I was going to run it for the county, but they don't really change that much. The top skills are the top skills in our region. So in terms of hard skills and more specific skills, you can see this play out: accounting, agile methodology, finance, auditing, project management, data analysis. Data analysis as a skill within your disciplinary cluster is starting to emerge as a must-have skill set. We're seeing that cut across multiple disciplines and multiple occupational clusters now, this whole notion of data analysis. As people start to grapple with and work with big data and large data sets, they need people who are data literate. Strategic planning, I'm so happy to see that one on there. Means I can get a good job. Budgeting, automation. So it's surprising to see automation as one of the top hard skills within your disciplinary cluster. That's going to require, again, teasing that out a little bit to find out exactly where that automation is being looked at or where it's being requested. My guess is that it's going to be mostly on the business sales side, but that's just an educated guess. I can tease that out if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about that. And that's pretty much the abbreviated version that I had to share with you. Again, some good news, some good job growth within your disciplinary clusters, a lot of job openings. So there's still gonna be a lot of demand, but some occupations that we need to keep an eye on because they are not going to grow, they are stagnant, and they're probably going to be transitioned out or subsumed by something else. We saw this happen as an aside, we saw this happen with network engineers a couple of years ago. The number of network administrators started declining, and we couldn't figure out why until we realized that they were shifting to software because everything had gone to the cloud. And so there wasn't any need for that physical hardwired structure anymore. You needed more of your software side and more of the cloud-based. So that's where we saw those jobs go. So as we start looking at this data a little bit more over the next couple of months, we'll kind of get a sense of where some of these declining jobs may be reconfigured and being captured elsewhere.
Kevin, I thought that was really helpful. And I just want to start off briefly. And if you have a question for Kevin, in addition to the ones I actually saw in chat, please put it in chat and he will be able to see it. At the moment, though, while he's sharing, he can't. So, Kevin, let me ask you a couple of things that came up. The first was Deb Posey asked, did she see information about early childhood or elementary education in several of your slides? Did you want to just elaborate on that or go back?
Elementary education is going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those growing in demand. A lot of new jobs coming on board, both within the county and regionally. So, actually, looking at it, I think it's elementary, middle, and high are actually the way they're ranked now in terms of the most demand for jobs. And you see some demand starting to creep into pre-K as people start to transition back, particularly as we come back and MCPS goes back into session. I think you're going to see a corresponding uptick in the next.
Now, she's actually saying she thought she saw a decline area in one of your first slides.
It may have been, let me, if you bear with me, I can go back and look. It may have been.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
That's openings. Okay, continued job loss. Preschool teachers are going to 50-mile radius. That's the one education piece that we're going to see sustained job loss on, except special education. And I believe the other one was, again, preschool teachers in the county. So that category right there is the one that
actually Dr. Pranita Hernandez said the data doesn't divide early childhood, i.e. she means pre-K to third grade from elementary.
No, it does not. The federal data does not do that. It doesn't get that granular.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting question. If there were any way for us to get those additional data for our faculty.
It could be if you take a look at job postings and job titles, that could give you a sense of where the current energy is, but there's really no way to do projections based at that because the data is not captured at that granular level.
Yeah.
So we're limited by what the feds do.
Yeah, right. If they don't collect it, we can't evaluate it. Jamie Gillen asked, what are some of the contributing factors to our slow recovery projections that you shared?
I think some of it has to do with our industry mix. We are not as a high-tech knowledge economy as we like to think we are. We are still heavily service economy in a lot of areas, particularly within pockets of the county and pockets of the region. So, that service economy that was hit hardest by the pandemic is also going to be the one that's going to take the longest to recover. And because we have more workers engaged in that type of work, that's kind of what's dragging these numbers down, or it's slowing the growth a little bit. That plus, I think there's a lot of uncertainty still related to COVID. And so I think hiring has kind of been erratic at best.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to zero in on one specific thing. It could be a pipeline problem. It could be a talent issue. It could be that the jobs just don't come here due to other variables, such as maybe tax structures or things like that, cost of doing business in the county, the commute. So there's a whole lot of variables to go into why a specific industry or occupation is or isn't growing.
So Sarah Ducey asked about the dearth of births That's hard to say. Due
The
to the
what?
large part of the pandemic, she wanted to know if the, the dipping in the birth rate is going to play into jobs in childcare and education. If so, what would you speculate on that?
Maybe. I haven't seen any numbers of whether we're going to have a COVID baby boom or not. I wouldn't be surprised, but again, that's something we wouldn't see play out for 2-3 years down the road. It's hard to tell. Plus, right now, in looking at some of the demographic data in the county I was looking at last week, we're starting to see some slow growth in the under 5 category, which is a little concerning because there for a while it was booming, it was booming, it was booming, and suddenly it's we're starting to see some low growth in that. We're seeing low growth population demographic wise across the county. We're not growing as fast as anticipated. Birth rates are down, but we are seeing that but some of the stats still remain true that 7 out of 10 children 18 to 24 by the year 2030 will be non-white.
Yeah.
So that's a huge seismic shift.
So Greg Malveaux asked, he said, and I remember this as well, that your food service and retail were listed as a loss on your slides.
Yeah.
However, he's seeing a desire for businesses that are advertising positions to be filled in every capacity in hospitality. Perhaps you could speak a little bit on why these jobs are not being pursued. They seem to be out there, and he's considering this for our students.
I guess it would depend on what type, and we know from just anecdotally from what I've read, we know that fast food jobs, server jobs, I guess chain restaurant jobs have lost some attraction, lost some appeal. And so people just don't want to do that. People just don't want to do that work as to the degree that they wanted to in the past. Now, maybe raising wages may have an impact on this, but so far, anecdotally, we haven't seen it play out. So I think it's just a generational attitudinal shift in that type of work. I think you're also seeing a lot of automation. I just saw that in the chat. Food service industry is probably one of the ones that's going to get hit the hardest by automation because as it becomes more standard and easier to implement, you don't need to hire as many bodies in there. You may need to hire more people to actually program the software, which is good for us because it's a higher paying job, a higher level skills. But we're not seeing the hiring, keep up with what they want. So we're not seeing as many people accept jobs as the jobs are being offered.
So you're seeing kind of a gap in what employers, and I think too, didn't you mention at one point that employers laid off a lot of these workers?
Yeah.
And then thought they could rehire them, and those workers made other alternative.
They moved on.
Moved on, and they're not available. And Kathy Henley made the comment, they're either moved on or they made more on unemployment than with working. So that's going to be a big issue in terms of whether or not those jobs can be refilled. Are there other areas you think where you're seeing some data that suggests we're going to have growth that maybe we're not anticipating? I mean, you always bring up commercial drivers, but is there anything else?
CDL truck drivers. My gosh, truck drivers has been at the top of the list for the last 10 years. We need more tractor trailer drivers. We just don't have enough. And in this region, there is such high demand, they're always the top in demand job. So it is. So I think what's related to that though is going to be some of that logistics supply chain management. I think you can see a lot of related growth in that area as well. And you're starting to see some of that played out as well.
And there wasn't as much in your presentation about the arts, but like the hospitality industry, the arts, because of the tactile nature, the interactive nature, has been hit pretty hard.
Yes.
Are there any thoughts or forecasts you would make about that particular industry?
It would depend. I believe I think I sent Frank the most recent data dive into the arts. I'd really have to go back and split it out in between performing arts and
Yeah.
regular arts.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of performing arts, I think there's some moderate projected growth in the next 9 years. It's going to depend a lot on people's comfort level of going back to some of these performances. Just got an email today about companies coming in to use our facilities requiring patrons to be vaccinated. So there's a whole lot of moving parts around this until people kind of get comfortable enough to go back to these pre-pandemic kind of activities.
Especially
It may take a while.
the insecurity and the lack of, where are we in terms of how well we're protected against something like a Delta variant or subsequent variants. There's been a conversation going on in chat about retirements, about teachers quickly realizing they can do a lot better if they retire now, and they don't need to work for another 10 or 20 years. What are your thoughts on that in terms of retirements and its impact? Do you think that has a pretty impactful level on what we're going to be seeing?
Absolutely. It's going to have a huge impact. You can see this, the most job openings in 50-mile radius. You see secondary school teachers, elementary school teachers, 27,000 elementary school teaching job openings, 16,000 secondary school job openings. So there's going to be a huge demand as teachers retire. Remember, we were anticipating that big retirement right around the last recession, and then it didn't happen because everybody's retirement got hit, and so they were hanging on for a couple more years to keep them to work a bit longer, and then they started to retire, and then COVID hit, and so we've had this big retirement delayed twice now by things that have happened, and so I think it's going to be hard to delay it again, and I think you're going to see a huge impact on retirements.
And Dr. Marabi is mentioning there were a number of studies conducted in this area. It shows that higher unemployment compensation did not cause people not to return to work or seek new employment opportunity.
I think it's a mix. I think it's you hear the criticisms that paying the unemployment bonus, people want it getting paid more, they have no incentive to work. But there have been studies that have shown exactly that it really didn't have an impact. It's just that people didn't want to go back to these types of jobs they had pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, they may have learned a new skill. They may have become passionate about something else. And so they were looking for new opportunities. So this was an opportunity to redesign, reinvent themselves. And so some of these old jobs that haven't changed much in the last 10, 15 years, people don't want to go back to them.
Yeah, you want to do something new, different, or they also, of course, we read all these articles in the Times and the Post that they want to have variety in terms of their ability to balance home and work. And if they can do something where they can work remotely, many people decided, I can do that. That's really helpful.
And entrepreneurship, I just saw it in the chat, entrepreneurship is one of those areas that I think we're going to see a huge boom. I think we've seen it during the pandemic. We saw it before the pandemic, and I think we're going to see it sustained after the pandemic.
Yeah. And something Dr. Shahadi said, yes and no. It's great. I think many still try something new, especially if they have the financial freedom to do so. I also think some are retiring to stay home and take care of their parents or provide childcare to their relatives. I'm sure if they're able to, they might. And then Greg Malveaux is commenting, they learned these new skills in a matter of months and not to return to old work. And yeah, some of them did. Did you want to comment on that, Kevin?
It depends on what the skills are.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, they converted. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to tease how, if that out of this data, if that's happening, you can make some assumptions. It wouldn't surprise me that it's happening, and anecdotally, you read that this is happening. But in terms of the data itself, the only way to do this is to kind of compare EMSI, where we get this data from. And I saw a question in the beginning, what's the source of this data?
Yes.
The college has a subscription to a service called Economic Modeling Specialists International, and they're based in Moscow, Idaho. Not Russia, based in Moscow, Idaho, and they run, and we subscribe to this data, And they pulled this data from Bureau of Labor Statistics, from the Maryland Department of Labor and Licensing, quarterly census of employment and wages. They have about 90 different state and federal sources that they use. And then they run all this data through their own proprietary algorithms to do projections. So the county uses this data. We use this data. We've been using this data since 2006. So it's one of the, it's very reliable. It's very reliable data. It's updated 4 times a year. Every quarter when new data is released at the federal level, they update it.
So Professor Barnes mentioned that people want to feel safe and protected at work. And some are expected to be essential workers, but they don't have medical insurance or livable wages. Do you think that's contributing to the issue?
Could be. It could very well be. It would be hard to tell. Again, from this data, it would be very hard to tell, because this data doesn't kind of get into that. But there are ways you could go about getting that. You could kind of take a look at some of the survey data that's done, the quarterly census data that's done. And I believe you can download the PUM file that might actually have comments in it. I've never done that before, but I believe it's available.
Yeah, and there's another comment here that Professor Trotter put out here. We must also be careful that we realize that some are using this explanation to indicate that some people are just not interested, as an explanation for why they're not interested in working at all. And for some, it wasn't months. For some, it was really a long time, last year. People were losing jobs in March, so they might have picked up employment or changed skill sets over the course of a year. And then Professor Gomez is mentioning that there's a new preference for work flexibility. Are you looking at that issue at all? There's been an incessant number of articles about the need for alternative work opportunities, and even Krista Leach Walker was talking about, here's what remote work means to us versus teleworking this morning. The work-life balance, the nature of work is changing.
There's actually a filter setting in the job posting analytics feature that we use. You can tease out remote jobs. Haven't done I keep meaning to do a deeper dive into that. I can tell you that the number of remote jobs advertised pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic, you can see just like a rocket ship. It just shot up. What I need to do to kind of complement that is to kind of go into some of these job posts into the analytics feature and do some filtering by keyword. Telecommute would be a great keyword. Flexible work, flexible hours would be another one, just to kind of get a sense of where the growth has been, at least in job postings, for these kinds of flexible arrangements, which industries are providing them, which occupations are providing them, and which ones are not. That would also be good information to know as well, as which jobs just aren't being advertised as remote or telecommute or something like that.
So this is a really good question. And I think this is a really great way to end. Marianne, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name, Slilik, would like us to discuss how the jobs and the direction that jobs are going is going to affect what we're teaching and the majors that we offer, programs that we offer at the college. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Other than the fact that, yes, it's going to change significantly. One of the things that I do with some disciplines more than others, with our IT disciplines, I am constantly running skills reports for them. Here's what employers have advertised in terms of skills and certifications in the last 30 days, in the last 60 days, in the last 90 days. Here's what it looks like compared to 2 years ago, just so they get a sense for what are the most in-demand certifications that are out there. Can do the same thing with almost any occupation, any discipline. Now, some of these, some in terms of education, that core set of skills is not going to change that much over time. May see a couple of little anomalies pop up, but it would I can go through that and kind of give you a sense if you're interested in from your particular programmatic standpoint. Just shoot me an email, and I can kind of give you an overview of what skills what were the emerging skills, what skills are declining, what skills have been steady throughout. and also kind of figure out if an occupation is growing, what's the current skill set desired and how has that changed over time. I can even run it by company. So if we know there's a company that hires a lot of our students, I can go in and run a company talent profile report for that company and show you exactly what skills they've been advertising over time and how that's changed. A lot of data in here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also think Dr. Benton made an excellent point, which was you couldn't ask for a nicer segue. That the data here today, your conversation, your presentation is to generate an opportunity for the deans and the discipline meetings to discuss the implications of what you're sharing with us and to take a deeper dive. And as you mentioned, Dr. Long, you'll also provide any data they wanted, provided it exists, to have that conversation in specific areas and the implications for the faculty and the deans and the chairs and the coordinators for the future of work, which is really what we want to talk about and how we can think about our work in a new way and use these data to effectively address our very interesting and evolving and potentially renaissance that we will be looking at in the future in terms of what the implications will be. I'd like to take a minute to thank Dr. Long. Either use your emoji or wave or yeah, thank you. We thought he had a great presentation. I always learn something new and I always think, wow, that was really interesting. New way to look at those data. So real quick before we finish, I'm going to share my screen briefly and just say to remember to stay masked indoors and to encourage everyone to have good hygiene because it really keeps all of us safe. And please have a wonderful semester. And last but not least, we will be, of course, in the office. And on Monday, the 30th, the first day of classes, where some of us will be at in-person classes on the Rockville campus, we will be, and if you're there from Tacoma, if you're there from Germantown, come on down. We have free Carmen's Italian Ice and ice cream outside in front of the new Student Services Center. And we just want you to come and feel welcome and supported in a safe environment so that we can all have a little something to share and keep our distance, but be together. Maybe that is kind of the theme for the year. Let's be together. Let's keep our distance. And if we're in the building, let's wear a mask and be thoughtful of each other. And as Dr. Dukes mentioned, show each other grace since we're all in this together. And with that said, I just feel thrilled that I've given you back a whole 2 minutes of your day. It's been a long one and you've been very great participants and very patient. And I can't thank Dr. Long enough for taking time. And you can bring anybody you'd like, Professor Lee, to our Carmen's ice cream. They assure me they will replenish. And because that was the first question I asked, are you going to bring more? And the answer is yes. So this is all for you. For your students, for whomever, if I see somebody from the neighborhood, what am I going to do? Turn away? Of course not. I'll say, welcome back. So all of you have a great semester. Thank you again, Kevin Long. Thanks to Kathy O'Brien, Raquel Bonet, Ellen Wallace, and Kathy Henley. Without them, this presentation could not happen. And of course, to our fabulous deans who are forever in your court. So I look forward to them having great meetings tomorrow and all of you having a great semester. Be well. Take care.